What have you predicted that came true? Did people believe you beforehand or afterwards? We were going out. I said I'm not leaving my car here. A tree will fall on it. Took my car. Returned hours later to a tree had fallen on my best friend's car. I once made a bet with someone that Amy Winehouse would be the next member of Club 27. When I was 12 I had a dream where I learned from a firefighter that I would have exactly 2 children, and they would be boy-girl twins. I told many people about this because I was absolutely 100% certain it would be true. When we were just dating I told my future wife about it to make sure she was okay with carrying and raising twins. My boy-girl twins graduated high school this year and are getting started in college. Their grandfather was the fire chief of his town. The mortgage crisis I saw my friends with low-paying jobs qualifying for homes way beyond their means. I had a dream about an ex-boyfriend telling me he couldn't do this anymore, and rambling on about it. The next day I was chilling with him and he accidentally scrolled to where Tinder was on his phone or saw him asking another female to hang and hook up or something along the lines. I don't exactly remember. I confronted him and he said damn near the exact words that he said in my dream. I don't know if I was just paranoid and dreamed that, but I just had a feeling that I was going to find him cheating in some way. Also, my cat never runs and hides from people, ever. But when he'd come to my house she'd always hide from him. I'm a strong believer that pets can just sense when a person is shady. A few years ago my old neighbor was out walking her dog and I was sitting in my car smoking a bowl when one saw her and thought she looks sad. I should say hello, I wonder how she's doing, but I didn't speak up because I didn't want to bother her and I was smoking pot, so I didn't want to get out of my car. 2 weeks later she committed suicide and I felt so bad that I didn't say something when I was thinking about it. I had a dream more vivid, realistic, and emotional than my usual dreams that my sister got into a nasty car accident on the highway. I woke up as soon as the impact of the crash happened. I called my mom asking where she was because nobody was home. She said she was on her way to where my sister was because she had totaled her truck on the freeway. It was totally surreal. One night, my girlfriend woke me up at night. She was shivering and sweating at the same time, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "We need to get to Papa's house now." Lucky for us, I listened without giving it a thought and we drove to her dad's house. Still in our pajamas with no shoes on, we unlocked the door. She has a spare key as her dad lives alone and saw her dad slouched over a chair. Turns out he had had a heart attack and she dreamt him asking for her help. We got him to the hospital in time, thankfully. Like Ops said, totally surreal. My mom worked with a woman that looked a lot like her. Whenever I visited as a kid I would always have to do a double take because they had so many similarities. I had this dream, for months straight, about this woman that looked like my mother, and she was walking down the stairs. Right before her final step, she trips, and knocks all of her teeth out. I was so spooked and didn't say anything. Fast forward a month and I come home from school for lunch and my mom is home. Weird. She is sitting at the kitchen table and she's really upset. I ask what was wrong and she tells me that her coworker, who looked like her, had fallen down the stairs the night before and passed away. Writing it out, it doesn't seem so weird, but as a kid I was sincerely spooked. Oh crap, my time to shine. Picture it. February 1st, 2004. A bunch of us over a friend's house watching the Super Bowl. Halftime rolls around and as we mill about getting snacks, the lukewarm halftime show is rolling on the TV. I was watching it thinking about how little I could care about what I was seeing. I turned to a friend of mine there and said, "Man, the only thing that could save this halftime show is some boobies." And seconds later, Janet Jackson's titty flies out. Agape. We all stared at her boob and then at each other. I have felt guilty all these years thinking it was my fault that her half-exposed fun bag crippled her career. On an 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. someone asked where we were going and I for some reason said we were gonna pass the Statue of Liberty, which was definitely not the case. About an hour later we pass a mini State of Liberty in some body of water on the drive. No idea why I even said it. I had no idea that was there. Watching the pilot episode of Lost, that scene where everyone is walking around the wreckage kind of stunned and one of the jet engines is still running. I said out loud, someone's going to get sucked into that. Guess what happened 30 seconds later? Reddit. Guess. No capes. Got an urge, out of the blue, to call an old friend I had not seen in at least a decade one night. Someone who had been nothing but kind to me. Even called my dad at 9 p.m. to see if he could get in touch with any of her relatives there in his social circle and get me her number. Was not able to get her number. She shot herself that night. Many regrets. Around 5 I had a dream that my mom was going to be arrested. Woke up, ran the living room to find them getting ready to leave, told them not to go. They did and got arrested in a drug bust. Not exactly predicting, but I've made jokes about people and pets dying and they died within a day of me joking about their deaths. 2 instances stand out. My dad was a deacon who had been assigned to 3 different churches. The pastor at the first 2 he was assigned at had both died recently. I joked to my dad that his current pastor should keep an eye out because he'll be next. I got a call from my dad later that day saying the pastor had a heart attack that morning and was found dead. The second instance happened when I was a kid. I was being an asshole to my little brother one morning and told him as a joke that Rascal, our pet dog, had been hit by a car the night before and was dead. The next night Rascal was hit by a car and was killed. To this day I feel guilty over killing Rascal and being shitty to my little bro. It was an early lesson in karma. It's pretty clear you're a murderer, bro. I took as many math classes as I could in high school American. My freshman year, I doubled up and took a more advanced class along with the normal class, so I had one class with juniors and seniors. In that class, the teacher joked that you should always listen because he might say a random word and then ask for it on the test the next day. I might say, blueberries. You never know. He never ended up asking for it. Anyway, fast forward a year and I'm in the next math class with my normal classmates who had never heard him say that, and he did it again. He essentially repeated the exact prompt. So right before he said blueberries, I was ready. We both said it at the exact same time with the same pitch and cadence and everything. Everyone freaked out. I explained how I knew, but even so, most people thought I was a genius. Nope. Just good at remembering insignificant details. When I was a teenager, I told my parents I had a bad feeling about a house we were going to rent. We did a walkthrough and the place just didn't seem right to me. I begged them to renew the lease in our apartment and not move. We moved anyway. Well, it turns out the house was very, very old, and I feel very much that it was haunted. And the landlady was actually a manic crackhead. A few months after we moved in, a fire broke out in the wall next to the wood-burning stove in the house. Fire marshal concluded the fire was actually due to old, faulty wiring in the wall, and not the stove. Crazy landlady blamed us anyway and made our lives hell for the rest of the time we lived there. Years later, my mom admitted they should have listened to me when I said we shouldn't move there. I somehow knew my sil was a lesbian. We were all Mormon at the time and my husband didn't really put stock in it, but she got a girlfriend recently and now my husband thinks I'm a genius. Are you above all of the other wives now? I used all my predictive luck in 2nd grade with a paper bag of Tiddlywinks. I pulled something like 7 in a row guessing the color correctly before each. I've never won a contest since except $1 scratch-off tickets. My biggest winning was $2. So I was in a dream once, and I don't know if anyone has had this before, but I dreamed I was at school in lunch. Had some conversations with the people at my table. All's normal. Boom, alarm clock. I went to school that day and noticed I knew what people were going to say and remembered that dream. All the kids at my table were kind of freaked out, but so was I. Maybe there is a way of seeing into the future. When I was in elementary, junior high, my school was at the bottom of a big hill and my house was on a street at the top. When I was 12, I turned to my friend while we were walking home and said in a southern accent, "This here hill will come in handy when the flood hits," as some sort of offhand jokey comment. 6 months later, my city, Calgary, is in a flood. Granted not near our suburb, but school was shut down for the last month before summer as most of downtown, which a large river flows through, and the neighboring towns were in severe flooding. Kind of got me, shook me, because I vividly remember saying that as it popped into my head out of nowhere, and it came true. I was a 6th grade psychic. One time I jokingly said, "Here are the Powerball numbers for next Wednesday," and guessed them all right. It was over texting so I could check again. I lost about $500 million due to not capitalizing on one of my jokes. That is a life-changing joke that I made that nobody including myself believed. I couldn't believe it when I saw the numbers. I'm still kicking myself in the rear over that. Can you jokingly PM me the next Powerball numbers please and thank you. Back in high school we got this new teacher during my junior year. He was a real nice guy and was real friendly with everyone and was super talkative. I talked to the man once. Just once. And I immediately didn't like him. He didn't say anything wrong or do anything weird, but I just felt super off about the guy and not a single person believed me because everyone just thought he was super nice. Not even a year later, early into senior year, he gets arrested for having a relationship with a 15-year-old freshman. Mind you, the man was married and had 2 kids. Just goes to show that sometimes that gut feeling is pretty spot on. Not exactly a prediction, because when I had the premonition it was already true, but here it is. Senior year of high school, my whole circle knew that my best friend was going to be asked to prom by her crush. She knew we all had a secret based on some hints and teasing, but we kept the secret from her. In one class with her, she tried to get me to tell her. I said no way. She said she wouldn't tell me her secret then. Yes I do. And I looked at her and I knew that her mom was pregnant again. I said I know what it is. She said no way. We went back and forth, and the more she talked to me about whether I knew or not, the more convinced we both were that I knew, but she refused to confirm my suspicion because she wasn't supposed to tell anyone yet. So a few months later, she came to me and asked me what it was that I knew. I told her I knew her mom was pregnant. She confirmed. She gave me the okay to tell people this morning. It's crazy how you can just look at someone and instantly know what they are going to say. When I was in middle school, my best friend told me she had to tell me something. Without thinking, I just automatically knew her family was moving back to their hometown in another state. Yep, they were moving the next week. I told my girlfriend that I was going to do something stupid today. I ended up tripping on myself while I walked and gave myself a concussion by tripping into the bedroom door. Realized that I pulled an unintentional Andy Dwyer. That I would get stabbed in the eye. The next day I got stabbed in the eye. Couldn't open it for a little while. Was he wearing a purple shirt? Wife's coworker went to Vegas with new boyfriend. I said she's coming back married. Wife said I'm stupid. Came back married. I always thought those Asian nail painting places were full of slaves. Turns out I was right. I'm like 90% sure that this is a common one around here. I have predicted the fate of every single one of my friends' relationships. Whether if it's that they should make a move, or split, I have been right every time. I have lost many friends however, as they resent me for not telling them. I bet that João Felix would sign with Atletico Madrid. Nobody in the soccer community believed me, but then it happened. The most bizarre would be a UFO sighting in my hometown. I was a weird kid. In elementary school I thought it would be funny to act like I'd had a premonition, and so came up with the most random thing I could think of at the time, a UFO. I put on a stunned face, walked up to a couple of classmates and said, "This Friday, look to the sky at 8:30 p.m., and you'll see a UFO." The following week they ran up to me and asked how I had known what would happen. I forgot all about what I'd done, so after some back and forth, they say, "We did what you said." Friday night at 8:30 we looked outside and saw a green light in the sky. It even made the newspaper. Of course I didn't believe them. So, when I went home I checked the newspapers from the last few days. Sure enough, it was there, and dozens of people saw it. Except for me, of course. I predicted the death if Keiko, working in a school paper, had an open spot in the reader's comments section, goofing around in the office and wrote a short spoof letter to the editor that there were rumors of Keiko dying. A month or so later, he dead. I had a dream about Spider-Man Tom Holland getting sucked into a black hole and leaving the MCU. The very next day I read the news and saw the Sony-Marvel dispute caused him to leave. I have a recurring psychic thing where I'll see someone who I think is someone else, then later on I'll see that very person who I thought I originally saw. It happens every time and it still freaks me out. Not exactly what you asked, but sometimes my déjà vu is so strong I can predict what will happen a few seconds later. For example, one time I was in school and walking to class with my friend when I got a huge feeling of déjà vu. I then said something like, "Jason's coming," and a few seconds later he would round the corner and walk toward us. Another one I've had was one night I had a dream where I won $1,000 on a scratch-off ticket, and the very next day I won $1,200 on a $2 horse racing bet. I predicted that I would make a sandwich about an hour ago, and lo and behold, shortly afterwards I was eating said sandwich. No one thought it possible, but I predicted that a couple I introduced would become lovers and eventually marry. It came to pass, and now, I'm the godfather of their daughter. Back in my senior year of high school, I predicted as to how and why all of the friends in my friend group would all end up not continuing to all be friends. Nobody really believed me when I told them why we wouldn't be close anymore until it all happened. I also predicted that my friend and her roommate wouldn't get along when they were all acting like they were best friends. That time I only told my best friend what I thought was going to happen.